YouTubers, and thank you for tuning in to today's voting video on YouTube. It's of course a very hot day outside, as you can. A massive shout out to all of my Flip Flap fans alike. Sorry for the pun. I can't. And yes, although the hot weather is something that not many people are going to be highly agreeing on that point. Hey, 30 degrees, man, or possibly 35 degrees. Which heard from some people. Some people said 36. Others have said to me 37, but the general mix of what people think in terms of temperatures is all down to the barometers that are happening right over in continental Europe. I know it's really going to comment on YouTube, and I know that's going to be very much something as we're going to be looking at later on, because I know that the hot weather that we're having at this moment is actually going to be hyper unusual, and let's take a look at it right now. Okay, by looking at the hot weather chart, going by the looks of it, we've got 28 or 29 degrees Celsius, maybe 27 degrees Celsius, and what we can see here is that we have got a very high level of ultraviolet index. As we crank up towards tomorrow, and also towards Wednesday and Thursday, you can start to see that the ultraviolet index becomes extremely potent. Now, let's take a look at what's going on at the moment here. Now, of course, this Friday is going to be hot still, but not as hot as, let's just say, these days right here. And I know the weekend starts to chop and change, and I know it's going to be like above average temperatures, but not a heat wave, although I would say 25 degrees Celsius is, of course, a major gain in terms of heat wave like temperatures, I suppose. Next week will be cooler, but somehow, because obviously the sun is still within towards us via the northern hemisphere. And again, looking at how high these temperatures are, somewhat very unusual. And remember I spoke to you about having a weather whiplash. That's something I actually used to moan and groan over the last couple of days ago. Over the last couple of weeks ago, we had some very heavy rainfall from the first half of June, and that was actually a very interesting sequence, because what we had before was a very hot and very dry May. In fact, it was a very shockingly record-breaking May. The May that we just had reached up towards 35 degrees Celsius, matching so closely to that of June that it's almost impossible to really beat it. But the big question is, will it be a record breaker? I'm sure it will be, because some people said to me, hey, it's going to break up towards 36, maybe 37. For the southeastern parts of England, I'd probably say 38. Approaching the 40 degree mark, which to me brings me back some flashbacks of what we had back in 2022. So if you can really recall of what really happened during that summer, it was all down to an unusually high pressure chart. 40 degrees Celsius is extremely impossible, but not, well, let's just say, I wouldn't say it's that highly impossible to get. But right now, what we're having at the moment is absolutely unusual as hell, or heaven, as I could probably say it this way. And yes, as we get towards here, we already had one of the longest days ever so far. It's drastically different in so many ways, because what we had so far was that the extremely hot and sunny weather, I don't know what to really say, hey, but the extremely hot and sunny weather is all down to an extremely unusually high area of pressure coming all the way from Africa, most notably across Niger, Tunisia, Morocco, and other places like that, possibly Senegal, but I might be totally and utterly wrong here, because I don't know which African countries induced that type of heat. I dare say they're going up to the high 40s. And as I keep on scrolling around, you can start to see how unusual this pressure chart is for the rest of June 2026. And amazingly, if you look at Iceland, look how it successfully dodges and takes cover amongst just how unusually hot the weather that we are having at the moment. It's basically a little bit like a Malaysian sort of style temperature, if you ask me, or maybe somewhere like Thailand. I know Thailand can reach up to about nearly 40 degrees Celsius, but there you go. Strangely hot temperatures for the rest of what we're having at the moment. And of course, yes, yeah, The low pressure systems that we have had so far are now diverging into the north because the jets are moving up north, farther much north, and I think the pressure chart is like really high, less than 12 or 1049 HP. I might be totally wrong. Pretty much help me about measuring baroclinics and high pressure systems and whatnot. But this is actually very strange for the fact that we are dealing with such unusually high temperatures, and for the fact that I'm trying to straightforward make a video about it, and I initially didn't want to try and cover this, but yeah, it's very, very simple, to possibly say the least. And if we, let's just say, zoom this one out, you can start to see of just how chronically high this pressure system is. It's basically very unusual, if you ask me. I don't know, it sort of says to me, how the heck did we get higher temperatures like that? That is actually very unusual. And considering on the fact that maybe, who knows, the UK is not very prepared enough to try and tackle into some hot air, equatorial air, or let's just say Saharan air, because that's more appropriate. I wouldn't say the UK is that humid in terms of where it's located into, because of the fact that it's actually closer towards the Arctic. Yeah, the Arctic is actually relatively dry, and so is the Mediterranean. Like, although it's quite a temperate country, it's actually quite significantly drier than Malaysia. Interesting, isn't it? All of a sudden. I wonder why would a country like the UK, and also parts of like France, would be, let's just say, significantly drier than it is towards Malaysia. I think their proximity to the Mediterranean and the Saharan Desert makes me sort of explain why. It's very interesting. And as you can see that the rainfall totals are going to be relatively localized. But yeah, noticeably, like, with these severe thunderstorms coming right up, that's like noticeably lower in terms of chance. I suppose the convective level on this is actually relatively low. And if I look through the major forecast, yeah, it's actually very low in chance getting thunderstorms, but maybe around Saturday we might get a few of them popping out. I think it's very less likely Saturday or Sunday. Or maybe Monday of next week might be the much more likelier scenario. I don't know, but that's how it is. I'm just straightforward chatting to see how long it can be hot and dry for, and that's how it is. And maybe that's just what it is. I'm just basically taking some closer scrutiny of how in the hell we're getting this crazy amount of hot weather, and it's very unusual to see why. But there is some hope for those who really hate the heat, and I know it's going to be very long, and this is actually going to take extremely long, but this is something that I've just seen so far. According to the, you know, some people said to me, hey, it might be possibly more unsettled in July, I suppose, hey? But, hey, who knows about that? Because, you know, I suppose, hey, this is kind of a bit crazy, I suppose. I know that the temperatures will be staying above average, but not as a heat wave, I suppose, hey? Although, I would say, hey, the heat wave conditions will continue around in, like, southern regions and stuff like that. But, nevertheless, I did see something like that. Possibly more unsettled by mid-July. There's a high amount of scrutiny and uncertainty, just basically of how this will be like. And also, let's just see how Tuesday is going to be like. I'm not sure about on Tuesday. Sometimes when you do weather forecasting, people who like to say read the weather about it can just they can just pretty much have a long discussion about the barometric pressure system and how high. So let's just see. That's the thing. Measuring hot weather. It has a wide range of arguments, thinking about, it's a basket case. There'll be some people arguing about where the high pressure is going to be sitting. Of course, it's going to be around the southeastern parts of Europe, because it's actually coming all the way from continental Europe and North Africa. Who knows? Maybe extending as far south from Senegal. I might be totally wrong, eh? Please, geography people, kill me with my bloody backside facing towards me. Who knows? That's just what I'm after for. I'm just basically discussing about just how difficult
it is likely to be said as it is. I know that I think according to the anomalies, I think let me just go back to the summer fall predictions of what we had for 2026, and let me just show you of what's been happening with. Okay, so let me just have a look at the plans of what's happening at the moment, eh? Okay, so there has been some very interesting schedules of what it will be like, and here is of course the summer 2026 predictions. Have we got it right? Strange enough, if I scroll down here about having to talk about like this. Oh wait, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Hey. Okay, I think this is more to do with spring. But let's see how the summer is going to be like. I'm just kind of thinking of how hot or cold. So let's just see. Pretty much, yeah, I'm not quite totally sure about that. The 3-month outlook is going to be like this. Okay, so... Oh, okay. So this one's very different. Now, as you can see, hey, oh... So we're starting to see some very different anomalies going on here. So 25% wetter than average. 60% near average in terms of precipitation, and 15% of dry weather. I don't know what to really say, hey, but it does seem quite, skeptical, because these likelihoods of impacts predictions, as I can see, these percentage impacts, they don't always seem to get it right, because obviously, what people don't actually realize is that you have to really rely on other weather pressure systems that are also happening around the world. That's one thing I realized. Okay, 40% hot, the normal chance. 2 times the normal chance of getting hot weather. Yes, it has increased a lot more. So, hearing about that's something, because it is an upward trend to hear about hot weather, of course. And yeah, let's just see about that. They do not say, for example, that the summer will be definitely hot than wet. They're just probabilities. They're just predictions of what it'll be like, I suppose, But yes, as I said earlier before, they're not really great about how the weather is going to be like. Any total predictions and stuff like that. It's kind of a bit funny when you think about, for example, where we had, let's just say, a 2-week break from hot weather around, let's just say, the very last days of June, just after, I think it was Saturday the 29th of May, sorry, Saturday the 30th of May, I think on the 31st of May, and then we also headed towards the early half of June, where we had below than average temperatures, and what was even more strange was that we also had some unusually chilly temperatures in June, like, 7 degrees Celsius in June. I mean, what the hell? Like, of course, I can still rant about it, but then, hey, let's not be very much, forget about the hot weather is also kind of another thing to make people complain about it. But then don't worry, that's just how it is. That's just how human beings are. They can just make the most of how, for God's heavenly sake, and about what the weather's going to really throw in. 5% cool, 0.3 the normal chance, 5%, and the wind speed. So 60% near average, 25% windy, and 15% calm. Interesting when I start to see this. Yeah, I have to say, hey, it is interesting to see how our summers are going to be like, and with hot, dry air like this. I think what's really safe to say is that the wind speeds are kind of declining as well too. The other thing I also have to witness is that while we are enduring some extremely hot weather at the very moment, to possibly say the least, the other thing I also need to look out for is that the fire risk might be quite high as well, because with all that hot, tender, dry air coming from Africa, that really is going to spark some nasty fires. Hopefully there'll be no disposable barbecues because of the safety risks around this. Of course, I don't do barbecuing, obviously, because of the safety and health hazards beyond barbecuing and things like that. But that's just, something that people like to do in the midst of summertime. Okay, don't lit up cigarettes, and also like barbecues. Don't play with fire in the middle of the heat wave, otherwise that can cause some severe consequences, and then that will have to spread another wildfire. Okay, so yes, that is interesting. Hearing about this, very, very nice. Obviously, I do want to have a look at how the Met Office has forgotten. Okay, we've got 38 degrees Celsius. Okay, but then there's also some more. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh, that's strange. Oh, I can see that. That's very crazy. That's a bit strange. Looking at this long-range weather forecast, that's a bit funny. We did say some much more unsettled conditions, but what's even more strange is that they've totally ignored of just how, it's actually going to be still above average in terms of the temperatures that we have at the moment. Yes, high pressure systems are going to be much more likelier than average than low pressure systems. Of course, there's some chances of, hot conditions developing at times, settled on dry than average conditions, but there is a chance of some changeable or unsettled conditions developing at times, potentially with some thunderstorms. And but if I scroll down towards here, there's some high uncertainty here. Okay, I can see that it says there's less chance of any heat wave conditions returning. There's a bit of a confrontation of which weather models are they really going to agree on. Okay, so that's going to be a very interesting, epic battle to see which, let's just say predictions are going to be much more likely. I would probably say this one here from the Met Office might be more likely because, well, hot weather is becoming much more common now these days because of global warming and climate change. But then you might never ever know, because I think the last time when we ever predicted a heat wave like condition so far so good, we actually totally nudged away from it by accident somehow. But yeah, hearing about this is actually quite interesting to see why, weather patterns like this. Actually, let's take a look at what's happening in America for some reason. Let's see how the temperatures in Scranton and Pennsylvania are like. That's interesting. They seem to not really bode very well. I really wonder why. Very interesting. I never thought America could be a bit colder. Let's take a look at Chicago. Remember, I did talk about the weather patterns heading across through, Chicago, and also, let's just say, Scranton and Pennsylvania. They've been hotter. They've been quite colder than average, or cooler than average. And then you've also got St. Louis. Again, look at how shockingly hot these temperatures are. So it's an amazing and very interesting comparison to see how these weather patterns have changed. And it's actually quite a very nice attribute to see what's happening at the moment here. Quite interesting in so many ways. So far, so good. Let's take a look at Harrisburg in Pennsylvania as well. I'm quite curious of... Oh yes, very much the same. But yeah, really the hot weather that we're getting at the moment, which will last up to about 4 days, or possibly 5 days, or 6 days. I would say more like 5 days, or, depending on the context behind this, I would say maybe this would be more 24 degrees Celsius instead of 25 degrees Celsius. But giving of just how much, we've still got 5 days of heat. Who knows, it could probably change, with the barometric pressure system. Outside at the moment, there you go, 36, 37 degrees Celsius in London, of course. I'm just quite curious. Let's take a look at the temperature in Norwich. I'm quite curious about how high these temperatures are. Okay, it seems like they've actually decided to get away from being hot. Interestingly, it's still hot because it's positioned towards the eastern parts of the UK. Very interesting. 23 degrees Celsius. That's interesting because I think it's very close to the coast. Maybe there's a bit of an easterly wind going around here. Hey, that sounds very interesting to know. Let's talk about Edinburgh, because I know Edinburgh has been very lucky to stay cool. Very interesting. And it's already very wet in Edinburgh in Scotland. Belfast. Alright, I suppose so. Inverness. Also looking pretty good so far. And that level of hot weather that we've just had so far has been relatively unusual. But I think I should probably stop here, and I might as well move on to something else, because I know that the whole weather forecast system is really going to cause a lot of comment, and it really is going to cause a lot of controversy surveying my YouTube channel about, covering about weather forecasts. I now, I usually tend to talk about just how boring and cold the UK weather can be like, in terms of how wet it can be like and how cold it can be like. But now, as we're getting in towards summer, of course, yes, the heat wave conditions that we're having at the moment is something. But let me just go ahead and throw in what I might throw in next. Okay, I'm just going to go up towards the further end of my warehouse, and as you can see, I've been doing a lot of, tidying up, I suppose, hey? But then I'm just going to show you what stuff I'm actually going to straightforward make. Of course, I haven't got that much stuff to really do at the moment, hey? I think what I'm doing here at the moment is just oh man, look at my arts and crafts collection. It is just massive as hell. There's a wood pigeon outside here, eh? Luckily it's not that totally affected. I'll tell you what, my paper area here is getting absolutely massive. Very, very messy and somewhat massive. Sorry for the accent change, but there you go. It seems like we've got a big haul of paper here. And what I'm sort of thinking is that, yeah, that picture looks quite... one thing I need to try and do is probably make some bird baths or add some water into, bowls and stuff to attract the animals in my backyard garden, because it is, of course, a relatively hot and humid day outside. I mean, that's the major thing. Hot weather being a major game changer behind all of this. Okay, so, looking at all of the stuff that I have right over in this further part of my house, it's somehow something, because... Man, oh man, I'll tell you what, I've actually got so much of that going on here, eh? Oh, hello, Slinky. Hello, Slinky dog. From Toy Story. Obviously, Toy Story 5 is coming up. Maybe I might try and think about taking you out and probably make one of these custom USB flash drives, or maybe a Hexbug mode onto that one. What do you think about that? I might probably do that in another video sometime, if I haven't got the chance to try and make delay videos and whatnot. And... yes, I've actually got so much paper out here. Oh, man. Tell you what, I've actually got so much paper inside here. It's crazy. It's not that funny in particular. Well, I'm just going to straightforward show you what's in the cards. I've actually got so much paper stuff. Oh, man. I tell you what. I've actually got so much paper out there. It's almost like, oh, it's not that funny to really hear about. But there you go. I've actually got so much paper now. It's just pretty much insane. Hopefully I should try and be as much productive as I can, as long as I am, basically what I am, I suppose, with the amount of hot weather outside. Man, it does really promote a lot of, arts and crafts. And hopefully, maybe I have some time. I might probably start making some Christmas 2020 stuff. I'm sort of thinking, who knows? Do you think Christmas 2026 is going to be a very hot summer? Sorry for the pun, because we're getting some extremely hot equatorial temperatures like never ever before. And actually, to put that into context, with the hot weather that we're having at the moment, the big question is it going to really break the temperatures of what we had in 1976? 1976 was an unusually hot summer. Of course, it was like 35 degrees Celsius, and I'm probably guessing, yes, it is going to be an extremely hot summer that we're having at the moment. So having the urgency to move up north towards Scotland is going to be extremely impossible, and a def chance, I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe a very less likely chance because of how acclimatized I am as a person. Because notably, my skin is very much adapted to such hot tropical air. Don't worry about me, but then hey, I'm not running scared for that one. For my money's worth to go up towards Scotland, because of the heat wave that we're having at the moment. I don't know, but nevertheless, that's just how humans do. They just seem to care free about themselves and not care about the environment, and thus having to let other organisms and species alike to die out. So that's very much a strike 1, strike 2, and strike 3 scenario, isn't it? I mean, I've been doing the same things as Gavin Partridge or Scott Richards, having to talk about historic weather. Maybe I should try and do some historic weather videos. If I can do these, that would be very, very nice to talk about, summers of the past, and also how, let's just say, how weather patterns have been like so far in previous years. I've been quite curious about that because, well, that's just who I am. I really want to try and start making videos which are, genuine, for, let's just say, a wide range of audiences. In particular, not just gardening videos, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and also bus videos and whatnot. But I might as well try and make a highly diverse amount of content especially during the amount of hot weather we have so far. I'll try and do my best. If I do get tired, and if I do get really sick and exhausted, I'll try and take a rest. I can't have the urge to pretty much go up, north, because obviously I don't have the privilege and the money to really partake on that sort of essence, I suppose say. But yeah, I shall certainly try and do my best to rely on my body, listen to what my body says, and then that's what I can do. I suppose say the 35-degree heat wave that we're having at the moment is very unusual, but somewhat yes, it is going to be a thing for years to come. And interestingly, looking at this here is a giant contrast. Back in the winter of 2026, we had a lot of snow enveloping in our country. We had a lot of snow back then in January of 2026. Now, as we're getting towards summer of 2026, the likelihood of heat waves has become the massive game changer, as we can see. It's like at first glance we're going up towards Scandinavia, and now we're going up towards the Saharan desert. It's interesting, isn't it? Our temperatures are straightforward, ranging in size of just how big and small they are. It's a very interesting game changer at the moment here. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Although some people say, hey, that's not very amazing at all, because, hey, that's going to cause a lot of damage. I might have to probably start watering the plants outside, because it is, of course, hot outside, and I need to give them like a couple more, let's just say watering canfuls of water to try and fill these guys up. And also, speaking of water, I also need water too, so it feels like all of us are depending on water around us. Not just here, but also around the world. There are so many countries here, there's just so many. So much so that there's so many countries around all over the world, and they're just pretty much relying on water. It's crazy, isn't it? Right, onto the whole paper thingy bob. Of course, at least I'm away from the heater, of course. Thank goodness they are all away from the central heater, of course. Take a look at the other side as well too. That is also built away from the central heater as well. As long as it's not on, that is a very good thing, and hopefully that reduces the risk of getting fires. Pretty amazing somehow. I'm going to have to probably put some of my toy trains in there as well, because I don't want the sunlight to really affect the plastic of my toy trains, on the track and things. I'm just very aware about that, so I'm highly protective of my toys despite being a big fan of summer. Can be quite volatile, but hey, that's what it is. Anyways, I'm going to basically leave this video here, it was a video that I didn't really want to cover, because obviously, with hot weather conditions, I do seemingly struggle, but then that's the norm. If you really enjoyed this video, please give this video a very good like, subscribe for more for that videos in the future, and hopefully I shall do a toy review at any given time. As long as I'm not making any delayed videos, that's for sure. As always, thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.